buenos dias, good afternoon. Welcome to our session for the next 25 minutes, half an hour or so. We are going to be talking about some exciting technology that's coming into the mainstream of travel, things around artificial intelligence and things like that. So we hope you like what we're about to do. There is a saying at home in England, where I'm from, I'm Kevin May, I'm the editor of Tnooz, that you should never work with animals or children when you're on stage. So we don't have any animals or any children today, but we do have this piece of technology which we're going to hopefully demonstrate, and hopefully it will work. We have done a test earlier, and David here has been doing some interviews, and it did work. So if everyone can cross their fingers, we hope to show you something quite cool. So first of all, let me introduce you to David Lowe. David Lowe works for Skyscanner. He's based in Edinburgh in Scotland. So he's going to talk to us about this device. And also, once we've talked a little bit about that, about some broader trends in the travel industry around artificial intelligence and kind of where technology is taking things as we go forward over the next 3 or 4 years. So good afternoon, David. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So David's official title is a developer advocate, which I personally had never heard of somebody who's a developer advocate. So it makes sense, first of all, for you to tell us what a developer advocate actually does, please, David.
Surely. So in the tech industries, developer advocate is quite a common term in companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon and companies like that. They're essentially evangelists for that company's services to help other people use them. So for Skyscanner, we have Skyscanner for Business, which is our API services and other things that companies can build upon. It's my job to take those and help people to build things with them. So I advocate for Skyscanner, hence the title. It's really, in essence, about making other people's products better and extending our products out to other places.
Right, okay, so that's what David does. In particular, which is the first half of our session here today, David's going to talk to us about this device. So broadly, what is this rather odd looking, actually, first of all, hands up, who has seen one of these devices? It's called an Amazon Alexa. So is there anybody else? Put your hands up. One there. So very, very few. So in a nutshell, David, what is this device?
So the device in front of us is actually called an Amazon Echo. And every time you say
If you want me to repeat something you said, say Simon says, and then immediately say what you want me to repeat.
Every time you say the word Alexa, it wakes up. So I've just put it on deaf mode for a little minute, so it shouldn't do that. So that's an Amazon Echo. Echo, hence you can speak to it and it gives you answers back. But ultimately inside the service Alexa, which is Amazon's artificial intelligence assistant service, lives inside the device. Alexa also lives in other devices in certain markets, such as Fire TV in the United States, and other companies can use the hardware kit to embed Alexa into other pieces of technology. So at CES 2 weeks ago, Ford announced they had placed Alexa inside one of their car dashboards. So the thing we're really talking about is Alexa, but the device you see is an Echo, which is intended to be a sort of Bluetooth speaker for the house, which does a little bit more. A Bluetooth speaker that can answer questions for you and perform certain tasks, such as turn lights on and off and things like that. So,
okay, and Skyscanner is one of the lucky few organisations, let alone travel companies, that's been allowed to do something in conjunction with Amazon using this device. So tell us what you've done with it first of all, and then we'll go into some of the background.
Sure. So Alexa itself comes with a development kit. So in theory, anybody can build what's called a skill. So the Alexa voice that you heard a second ago speaking, that is technically Amazon's own voice, and they're quite protective about what Alexa says. And Alexa we have to refer to as a she because it has the personality of the she voice that they use. So they're very protective, and only certain skills get published to the public. So what you're seeing today is technically private until we launch it. But because of this kit, anybody can develop something. It gets approved by Amazon to be useful, to be understandable, something people would pick up themselves. So we've done that. What we've built is an early stage travel flight search at the moment. So you speak to Alexa, you basically ask Alexa to do something. In our case, you ask Alexa for a flight. Either you ask with enough information at the start that Alexa can answer the question straight away. So you could say something like, Alexa, I need a flight from Edinburgh to London tomorrow. And that should be enough once you tell her you're going one way or return to get the price, the cheapest price for that journey. Alternatively, you can just open the service by saying open Skyscanner, and Alexa then takes you step by step through a conversation until there's enough information to answer the question. So open Skyscanner, where are you going, Edinburgh, where are you departing from, Madrid, when are you leaving, things like that, until it's got these key pieces of information to provide a price back to you.
And what does it do at the end? I know we'll see a demo, but what is it supposed to do once you've told it that you want to fly from Madrid to Edinburgh?
So what we do is what we call an indicative price. So the price that we know is the last cheapest price that we've got in our system for that particular journey on that date. So it's a browse price, as we call it, for that day. It's not the exact price for a particular itinerary, so a time of day, but a price for that particular date.
Okay, so we're seeing lots of different types of devices. So everyone's got one of these. We've got iPads in our bags. David here is wearing an Apple Watch. And we now have yet another device for us to potentially own. What is Amazon's motivation, first of all, for producing something like this for us as homeowners, as consumers?
So Amazon's motivations for anything are never entirely clear. It's that some things they do as a bit of a test run because they can. Some things they genuinely think there's a use for. So you can tell what they're trying to do by exposing Alexa, as I mentioned. Anybody can embed Alexa into a piece of hardware. For things like the Echo, Amazon are trying to put an affordable device into rooms of the house that give you access to that Alexa service much more easily. So they expect the device to be used in living rooms, bedrooms, kitchens. And at the most basic level, because you have to be an Amazon customer to use one of these, it's an extension of Prime. So if you use this to play music, for example, if you're a Prime subscriber, Echo then has access to the entire Prime music library that you would get on your other devices, like your mobile phone. It's just a much easier way to control it, just by having this voice activation. So that's their motivation. It extends their services that they already have.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, the hardware kit's the important bit. They can embed Alexa services anywhere, in theory.
Where do you keep your Echo at home?
Mine is in my study, which doubles as my son's bedroom.
Okay.
So I use it because I spend a lot of the time working in there, and it's become a very good Bluetooth speaker come radio for me. But
okay.
That's where we use it. It has been in the living room. I must say it worked really well in there too.
Okay, and why Skyscanner as a travel brand, why do you want to get involved in something like this?
So we think, we've talked about what we think the future of travel becomes in many years. We published a report in 2014 about what we think the future of travel will be, and part of that was around virtual assistants and what we call travel buddies that help you to get to your travel needs a little bit quicker at different times of your life that you might not have thought about, and having an awareness of context and your past history and your preferences and things like that. We thought that would take 10 years from 2014, but ultimately technology moves very quickly. I mean, Moore's law doubles processing power every so often. So we've been able to start to do that kind of thing, which is always where we thought we would end up as a search company a lot earlier. So Alexa gives us a route to do this at a low risk cost with Amazon behind it in terms of exposing it to users quickly. So we can learn from those users that adopt these services and try to think what to do with them next. So it's really about giving people a way to search for travel at times they hadn't really expected. So you could be in your kitchen, that's the example we always use, hands full making something or hands wet. So you can't instantly jump to your phone because you can't do that. You can't run to a computer because it's not convenient. But some things come into your head that you want to look for a piece of information, in our case, travel, flight search. And we give you the means of doing that without having to touch anything. So you can just shout across the room, Alexa, ask Skyscanner how much from London to Edinburgh next weekend, because you've got to go and visit your family or you've got an event you need to see or something like that. We give you quick means to get that question answered. Just gets us a little bit earlier in the stage of planning travel as well. And it's almost inspirational too that we've given you a means of daydreaming that you think, I quite fancy the Seychelles next January, you can very quickly get an answer to that you might not have done before without a little bit of research or a little bit more finger work. So that's the motivation for us. It's good for the traveller. It gives them something in context they hadn't expected before.
Okay, so some quick fire questions before we get to the demo.
Okay.
How long did it take to build your end of things so that you could start integrating with Echo here?
So from introductory demos that Amazon gave us and to adapt those to what we've built, I would say on and off about 3 months.
Okay.
Not entirely full time, but thereabouts.
Yeah.
Sorry, please.
Sorry, and what did you physically have to do?
So we already have our APIs that service an awful lot of products. What we did was build an extra service in front of those APIs that can take natural language, in effect, that people have spoken to you and turn that into a travel query. So if somebody says, I need a flight from London to Edinburgh, Amazon presents that to us as a piece of natural text, in effect. So turning that into something our APIs understood and could give an answer to, but also building a layer that maintains a conversation that if you say, I need a flight to Edinburgh, we don't ask you where you're going. We already know that because you've said it. So we retain a session of information until we've got enough to answer the question, as you'll see in the demo. So that's the bits we had to add on.
Okay, and some of you may have noticed that I have a London accent. David here has a Scottish accent. How does it deal with the many accents in the UK, for example, let alone other accents that use the English language? Because presumably, is it just listening to English at the moment?
It listens to English at the moment, so the device itself is only on sale in the United States, so it has to counter all the languages in the USA. Now, we've got one here because I travel with it and demo, but technically you can only use it for real in the States. It deals with the languages in the States. Amazon train it very carefully with lots of sample phrases. So for our service in particular, we had to supply about 950 sample phrases that people might say. Then Amazon trained them against their machine learning to understand those in many different languages because they know the component words of these phrases very well. They have to adapt that to many languages in the States already. So it does understand Spanish, for example, is a common one in the States. So there are different variations to suit the market.
Okay, here we go.
Well, we give it a go.
So bear with us. It did work earlier.
So as we say, this is a domestic consumer device intended to be used in a house and not at a conference centre on Wi-Fi that's probably overused, but we'll give it a go. Alexa, open Skyscanner.
With Skyscanner Flight Search, we can give you prices for one-way and round-trip flights between 2 cities. To do this, we just need to ask you a few questions. Firstly, can you tell us where you want to go?
Edinburgh.
Got it. Your next destination, Edinburgh. Where do you want to fly from?
Madrid.
Great. Madrid. When are you planning to start your trip?
Tomorrow.
Perfect. Outbound, Thursday, January 21st. When do you want to come back? You can say one way if it's a one-way flight.
One way.
Perfect. We'll look for one-way flights from Madrid to Edinburgh on Thursday, January 21st. Is that correct?
Yes.
We found one-way flights from Madrid to Edinburgh on Thursday, 21st January. The cheapest ticket is with British Airways for $110.
Okay. Now, phew, everybody, that worked. So, what happens now? So, Alexa has said, okay, remarkably, British Airways is the cheapest way to get to Edinburgh tomorrow. Does it then populate your phone with that particular search result so that you can go off and book it? How does it work?
So Alexa doesn't work unless you have a companion application. And as all things happen in demos, the application's not working at the minute.
Okay.
So everything you ask of Alexa is sent to the companion app, so you've got a way to follow that up. There are things called Alexa cards, which are your follow-up, same as you would see cards in things like Google search results. So that's where your follow-up is, and the information rests there, and that's the bit you would then extend over time to be more functional.
Okay, so it works. It's quite basic at this level, but it's conceptual almost. But where do you see how travel brands, and we're thinking now hoteliers and tourism boards and DMOs and people like that, how might they think about using something like this in the same way that you have?
So there's 2 or 3 aspects to that, I guess. So at the very basic level, voice search is something that people will get used to. I mean, people have got used to using this when we've tested it with them at work and outside work with friends that tried it out for us. So I think when you get used to using this kind of thing, it becomes pretty native and powerful all of a sudden. So what I did there was a conversational search, but if the Wi-Fi had been a little bit better, I would have dared a better search, such as Alexa, ask Skyscanner to find me a flight tomorrow afternoon from Edinburgh to Madrid for less than £100, which is essentially taking away a lot of the pain of a flight search by avoiding 5 or 6 actions, clicks, things you have to do if you did it on a mobile app even, or on a website. You've actually done that in one hit and got your answer. For any brand that's associated with any type of search phrase, that's a powerful thing to offer. So as a tourist board, you might say, I need a 4-star hotel, need a conference center in Madrid. And you've got that answer pretty quickly, which is something you would have had a little bit of pain to do before. So the power of voice search probably shouldn't be underestimated for anyone. There's also the kind of exposure side to doing this. I mean, we're on the stage today presenting this because it's something new and because Amazon provided devices that make it a sexy thing to work with effectively. So there's also always the exposure that being seen as a leading technology provider or being seen as somebody that's trying new things gets you further down the road of being exposed and help your marketing. So there's those things in particular. I think that neither of those should really be underestimated as things people might want to do.
And the obvious question whenever something like this comes up, in the same way, if everyone remembers when the iPad came along and we all thought, who on earth needs a device that's between this and between my laptop, and now everybody has a tablet, right? And then when these came along, the Apple iWatch, why do we need a device on my wrist when I've got a phone in my pocket? So what's the customer need for one of these things, do you think? I know you explained it's kind of when you don't have your hands available and you're cooking or something like that, but is that really solving a problem, or is that a problem is that a solution that's desperately in need of a problem?
It's funny that I think the most successful service in Alexa at the moment is with Campbell's soup. There's a Campbell's soup recipe skill that takes you one step at a time through descriptive recipes. I mean, obviously you can't see what you're doing, so it's never going to replace pictures and video, but It does walk you through what to do with a can of soup to come out with a plate of pasta. So I stood on a stage similar to this about 6 years ago at a technology conference in a previous life working in television, trying to tell people that in the near future people would watch television on mobile phones, and everybody thought I was stupid and it's something you'd never do because the screen's too small. And the whole notion of catch-up TV and on-demand TV, Netflix was barely in service at the time. All these things are pretty natural now, and it takes somebody to take a chance on it, like Netflix being available on just about any platform you care to mention, so you can carry on your binge watching of a program right through the weekend. And people do these things. I watch people on trains and buses watching House of Cards because they couldn't put it down from being in the house. Suddenly things become natural. So with one of these devices, as I mentioned, in the house, my 7-year-old son shouts at it without really thinking. You know, if he's playing music, because that's what he uses it for, he knows he doesn't need to touch anything to play One Direction, which is what he wants to do. And that's a perfectly natural thing. He'll grow up with voice, hopefully, as a primary way to access a service. He shouts at Google, okay Google, to do different things. It's just native to him now. As people grow up, consumers get older, and that'll happen naturally. But consumers, once they see the use cases for things, get used to them. If you're used to shouting, as I do, because somebody's phoned me, I shout, Alexa, mute, so I don't want to hear music. Suddenly you get used to the habit of shouting at things, and it does become that little bit more natural all of a sudden. One day people will shout at watches, which is currently the real missing use case for the Apple Watch is output. You can shout things at it, but the output back the way isn't really that useful because you need to look at it on the phone. There's nothing really going to fit on the screen. So the uses will come and people will find them over time.
I mean, to summarize that, you could say that it's actually consumers that are going to drive this change rather than the change coming from within the industry, probably.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to your previous point about why Amazon are keen for people to work on things like this, the more skills that are part of Alexa and Amazon's suite of things that would make you buy one of these devices, the more they'll sell. So the more useful a device is beyond the basic Amazon use cases that probably exist somewhere else. The more people are going to see these and buy them, which is a self-propelling thing, that as more people see things, more people buy them, more people develop into them, and so it goes.
And this brings us kind of nicely into the wider discussion around artificial intelligence, which is something that is not new. The phrase artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. Could you just define what you see as artificial intelligence at the moment as it relates to what we've been talking about today?
So in general, artificial intelligence is really just replacing a function humans performed with something programmed and intelligent to do it for them. So at the basic case, there's been artificial intelligence in many things for a long time, as you say. What's happened to artificial intelligence is it's got easier to do over time as computing powers got better. Watson with IBM were on before us. They're leading lights in artificial intelligence, being made a more serviceable thing to do by offering it cheaply to many people. So for us, artificial intelligence is a way to take lots of different sources of data in our realm, turn that into something useful and avoid having to process a lot of information that's difficult to do. So in our case, we might know your travel habits from the past, previous things you've done, things you've built up that you've given permission for us to see. We might know previous searches and your preferences you made that you ruled out, airlines, hotel chains, things like that, certain booking types, certain payment types. We can build all that up. So when you ask for something, we've performed through artificial intelligence on our side a way to provide that answer without performing anything else by the user. So for us, it's just to take tons of information that humans on their own probably couldn't process in one hit themselves, do it for them and take them one step further very quickly.
And just dream up some scenarios where artificial intelligence is perhaps at the moment starting to make its effects in the industry and where it might go next. I mean, we're forever talking about personalization and then you kind of hinted at it there. Is that really where it's going to go, do you think?
I think that the volume of data for artificial intelligence at the consumer level will come from personalization and data that within privacy guidelines and so on, data that people volunteer will be the bones of artificial intelligence. So the main thing people volunteer is where they are and what they do. So Facebook are masters of taking intelligence on things you've liked, things your friends have liked that are connected to you, and the degrees of separation between them to essentially offer you advertising against things you know about. And that's the classic case. And that's only getting a little bit more complicated and a little bit more powerful every day. And people like us shouldn't be blind to that we need to ask people for permission to use their data, but offer ways to help them with it at the same time. So I think one of the main pain points about AI is people volunteering that information in the first place. And you're not going to use it for anything bad. You're actually trying to make their life a little bit better by taking a piece of information, trying to find something they hadn't thought of with it, and offering that back as a service.
Now, in the travel industry, we're in a unique position because it's so experiential. So it's not just where we've travelled from and where we're travelling to and the dates. It's what we did when we were in the location, how we reviewed it afterwards, how it made us feel, who we were with, and the things we did. So the travel industry arguably is in a really strong position to do really interesting things with AI, arguably.
I think the travel industry in general has an opportunity to build on a lot of good technology. AI is one of them, but the other thing we saw in our future travel report was artificial environment, where if you want to see what something looks like, virtual reality, as opposed to artificial intelligence, would give you a view on where you want to go and inspire you to try different things without actually having to go there, or even to go to the pain of travel search and then find out what it's like when you get there, which comes to your point of relaying your experience. And then you overlay artificial intelligence to know the kind of things that you're likely to do if you visit a location through virtual reality, and within that virtual reality it's tailored to what you would like to do. Say you visit bars, say you visit theme parks, things like that that are more real to you. That's where the whole technology world collide to make travel that little bit easier. And it's the inspiration piece that we think will be the main benefit of that.
Okay, just two final points then before we wrap up. You know, the naysayers, the people that are maybe not anti-technology but have a lot of doubts and are cynical about the creep of technology into the travel industry, almost always say that the travel industry is a really human type industry. It's all based on experiences and interactions, especially those that you have with a brand. Is there a danger that we are replacing the one thing about the travel industry, which is its humanness, with things like technology?
I think it's not just for travel, for any industry that wants to take this kind of service into its environment. The main blocker for people adopting these things, going back to the point, will consumers actually try this, is to make it feel human. So the first time you do this, you notice the Skyscanner search, it comes back with little things like, cool, you're going to Edinburgh tomorrow. It's cheesy in a way, but it feels a little bit more human than a robot coming back saying press 2 for Edinburgh, press 2 for British Airways and things like that. So Amazon, when they approve these things to go live on the service, which they do for every type of search or every function that Alexa delivers, the main thing they look for, beyond the fact it actually works, is that it feels human enough that Alexa would deliver it. So they're trying to give Alexa that human personality as a layer above the services. So when you ask Skyscanner, Alexa as a human almost is coming to Skyscanner to deliver the questions. Alexa will deliver you the answer in a human way. And we found when we tested this ourselves, the less human you make it, the more people walk away from it and don't want to use it again. If they get a little bit of feedback that makes them happy along the way, just by saying, cool, you're in Madrid, the little things like that, they're more likely to come back and try it again. I mean, from years and years of friends trying these things in different industries, a friend works in remote controls for a TV manufacturer. Years and years ago, all the testing they did was around emotional responses. I mean, in some environments testing these things, people are wired up to heart rate monitors and sweat monitors and things like that to make sure the service hasn't annoyed them. It feels human, so they treat it like a human. All the vocabulary of this service is based around being polite. So Alexa has to be aware that somebody might say please, thank you, things like that a robot wouldn't need to worry about. But it does look for them and it does treat you well if you do that. So I think the human touch is important, but you can make that as part of building the service.
Got it. So last of all, final question. Stare into your crystal ball and give us one or two slightly wacky artificial intelligence type ideas that may or may not change the way we think about the travel industry in the next 5 years.
The CES show is always a bit of a bellwether barometer for these things, and it was a bit of a lean year for wackiness, I must admit. So Uber offering helicopter rides in its app in Las Vegas for one thing. Drones, which are actually helicopters that give you a lift for 1 mile. To me, a drone shouldn't have people in it, so it's not a drone anymore, it's a helicopter. But anyway, that wacky things exist in travel anyway. As I say, some of the virtual reality things that we see around hotel experiences and being able to walk around a hotel in the comfort of your living room and that kind of thing, that's not far away. I suspect as prices come down for both developing and delivering these things, it's almost not wacky anymore. It's things coming to life that were wacky 3 or 4 years ago. I think the wackiness is going to go off a cliff as people actually start to use this stuff. I mean, for us, it's basics today. You get a basic price for a basic search, but we'd like to extend that and make it easier to find more complicated things like an entire trip based around where you're going, recommend things when you're going there. And just by knowing your preferences, because you've used the service for a while, offering a little bit more than the one price at the end. So I don't think wackiness is the thing, it's just making it useful and comfortable. That's the big goal.
I suppose just a point then, one of the things that is getting a lot of attention at the moment is self-drive cars, which must make the car rental industry, their ears must really prick up when they hear that, because that could potentially revolutionize their entire model, couldn't it?
Yeah, and again, going back to this product and others like it, voice search, if you're in a hands-off experience being driven around, voice search is critical to that. So, dear Volvo, take me to the chemist, or so, you can derail yourself just by a quick command on the way through. And again, it's all about environment, knowing how to get there, so you're overlaying services upon services. So I think that's true, but again, it's just about making people's lives easier at the end of the day and helping travellers, which is why we're really doing this in the first place.
Okay, thank you very much. A round of applause for a very good demo that worked for Alexa here, and also a round of applause for David Lowe from Skyscanner. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Well done, sir.